Resident Evil Requiem is finally out, and I was pretty hyped for it. It's actually, I think this is right, the first Resident Evil I've bought launch day, which feels wrong considering how many of these I've actually played, but I think that is a correct stat. Naturally, with this level of hype, I was gonna platinum it too, and I did, of course, that's why this video's here. Before getting into that though, I do want to quickly say that I'm not going to really discuss the story at all, but I may show later parts of the game in the footage, so depending on how you are with spoilers, maybe just listen instead of watching. Only other thing to note is that I'm unlikely to mention every trophy in the game. Like, there's one for storing an item in the item box. What more do you want me to say on that other than, yeah, I did it? So for my first playthrough, I basically decided I wasn't going to focus on anything trophy-wise and just enjoy the game. Of course I ended up getting some naturally or just by chance, but I missed all the collectible ones as I wasn't thoroughly clearing out each area, so that was something I'd have to come back to. The most out-of-the-way trophy I got on the first run was probably the one for crafting every item as Leon, and okay, I kind of lied. I did go out of my way for this one a little bit. I ended up making all except like 2 items, so then I basically figured, well, I might as well get the last 2 while I'm here. The 2 bigger missable ones that I got for Grace were for defeating the singers and the chef in the care facility. The singers were weird, as you would think there'd be a much more common enemy type, but nope, there's only 2 in the game. The chef is one of the chaser enemies in the first part of the game, and so I was expecting him to be a real test to take down, because you're not supposed to. But no, not really. He took a grand total of 2 Requiem headshots. I didn't take out the big boy in the first run because I figured it was referring to a different enemy that I'd see later in the game, not realizing that the second half of the game was basically just the Leon show. And you know what, since I'm on that topic, I much preferred the first half of the game to the second. Don't know if that's a hot take, I don't look at other people's opinions. But playing that first part mostly as Grace, needing you to run and hide and pick your spots, is way more what I consider Resident Evil to be, needing to manage your items and so on. But I do think that then steamrolling those same sections as Leon is really therapeutic. It works really well as a juxtaposition, and having that section afterwards is really good. The second half is played the opposite. You're mostly Leon, and yes, there's still puzzles and items to find, but you don't have that same feeling of tension and needing to monitor your carry space and stuff like that. As Leon, I never had to worry about managing my inventory a single time, which I do consider an important part of the series. But the biggest problem to me in this section is that it's daylight. No, I'm not joking, I think this is a really big issue that hurts the second half of the game. I wouldn't quite go so far as to say it's like playing 2 completely separate games, but the experiences do feel pretty different, and I think that works in the first half and less so in the second. It could just be that they're different experiences and I just prefer Grace's. I end up preferring that kind of game. I do have a little bit more to say on this, but I'll save it for a bit more towards the end of the video and actually talk about the trophies. But yeah, I finished the first run with a little over half the trophies in about 9 hours, which was around what I was expecting. After beating the game, I looked at what I had left to do and what I was going to need to focus on for the upcoming runs, and I had a quick guesstimate that this would take me 4 playthroughs. The original one, a collectible hunting one, a speed run, and the hardest difficulty. I went for the collectibles next for a few reasons. First was that I could triple up it, and also the no blood collector and no healing trophies. I figured going through on casual would make this a non-issue. While this is mostly true, I'm not going to pretend I didn't have some silly deaths like getting chomped because I wasn't paying attention. It happens, I was on easier difficulty and I wasn't focusing as hard, and I paid the price for it. There are some tricks to help with this, like using the steroids with Grace increases your max health, but it also fully heals you and doesn't void the trophy. Without the ability to use the blood collector, that basically eliminates all Grace's crafting mechanic, which I was not concerned, but at least cautious about. It didn't really end up mattering though. Just for completionist's sake, the collectibles I got were the files, the Mr. Raccoons, the safes, and the BSAA containers. Not gonna pretend that I went looking for these myself, I used the Power Picks guide, trophy hunters know. I was impressed with the amount that I did get in my first playthrough though. Like, I was only missing like 10 files and like half the raccoons, which I feel were a lot more than I got in the other games. Maybe because this game makes the first one really obvious, so you're more likely to recognize and deal with them accordingly. I did also use this run to clean up a few of the other missing trophies, namely the chunk with Grace, which used all my ammo, so I reloaded afterwards to not have to waste it because, you know, no crafting. Some other easy ones, like getting 3 enemies with 1 Requiem shot, I got in Leon's very first section, and stunning the girl with the Requiem I did in the basement. The only trophy I actually needed to look up how to do in the whole game was Internal Dispute, needing you to get a blind zombie to attack another one. You can do this with empty bottles to get a blind zombie to swing in that direction where another one will be standing. I probably would not have figured this out alone, considering how infrequently I use the empty glasses. I actually don't know if I used them a single time in my regular run. Final one to clean up was for cutting off a licker's tongue, which is just a case of parrying their tongue thwack move. Timing is a little tight, but it's not that hard. Just leave yourself with one licker alive and wait for him to use the move. I beat the final boss again and beat the game in 3 hours and 54 minutes, which means that yes, I narrowly got the speedrun trophy as well when I wasn't really going for it. I figured that the extra running around looking for collectibles would have cost me, but this was great news. It meant I could shave off one whole playthrough. Before heading into the final Insanity mode run though, there was a bit of prep work I needed to do first. Doing in-game challenges, which mostly correspond to trophies and achievements, give you points that you can spend in the extras menu. These are things like new costumes, weapons, models and concept art for trophies, and crucially, infinite ammo. This was a must-buy to make the final playthrough as painless as possible. I did get some other things like Grace's machine pistol and the stronger hatchet for Leon, but really all that mattered was the infinite ammo. Now you might be thinking that because of this I'll have absolutely nothing to talk about, as I could one-hit everything with the Requiem and be on my way. And you're right for the most part. I died a few times in the attic boss with Leon when he doesn't have said Requiem, but that was literally just a skill issue on my part. No, I didn't really have much of an issue at all until reaching the lab. Could someone tell me why? Why is there a short section of the game where you fight humans with guns, and why are they so much harder than anything else in the game? On Insanity, guns do insane damage to you, which, okay, it makes sense, but this is a video game. I don't need guns to one-tap me. Getting one-shot by a guy I could have never seen coming is not fun. Sure, there are zombies with guns that kill you fast too, but they are slow and stationary, so it's kind of balanced in that way. The soldiers are way too hard to hit for how much damage they do. Thankfully, there's only like 2 rooms with them in the game, but at that point I question why even bother having them here at all. The lieutenant boss is also tough, but that one's just more of how quickly he can eviscerate your health if you have a skill issue, like me. One trick in that fight is that after parrying, you can actually quickly shoot him with the Requiem for more damage than just hitting him with the axe. Grace's last section is also difficult with the lickers, but that's because she doesn't have an OP gun and the Molotovs don't have infinite ammo, so you still have to like mind your ammo reserves a little bit. Should probably also mention that Leon does have a rocket launcher you can buy in the extras menu, but I didn't get it, and after finishing, I don't think it would have helped that much. I assume the lieutenant still dodges it. I did also use this run to get the 5,000 blood units as Grace. I basically just did the rounds getting all the blood I could and then making the most expensive item I could before repeating, so I ended up making like a ton of the red knives. Last thing to note on the Insanity run is that you don't need to fight the final boss. You can get the bad ending, which also gives you the trophy. I believe the only trophies actually needing you to fight said final boss are the one for specifically doing that and the speedrun. But after beating that final run in around 5 hours, I had done it. I had platinumed Resident Evil Requiem. So after all that, how did I find the game? Short answer, it's great. Slightly longer answer, it's still great, but not the same amount of great the whole way. I mentioned earlier, but I much preferred the first half to the second. I don't think the second is bad by any means, but I much prefer feeling more helpless as Grace, and this also applies to her liquor section in the lab too. That's probably my favourite part in the second half of the game. The only point of the game that I was ever like frustrated though was the short section where you fight the soldiers as Leon. It makes sense narratively for that to happen there, but gameplay wise it just runs counter to basically everything before it. And they really shred your health too much even on the easier difficulties. Other than that section, the gameplay is smooth and I had fun the whole time. I never had any technical issues or anything like that. It's just a really solidly made game. I didn't mention this before, but the game does let you play in first or third person as any character at any time, which is a great thing. Choice is always good. I mainly played as the game recommended though, so first person as Grace and third person as Leon. Only thing I have to note really is that in third person as Grace at the start, she will fall over if you sprint too long, which doesn't happen in first person, and it's awful. It got me killed during that opening section with the girl. After that I just went back to the default. Now this might be another controversial take, but despite being a decent part of the marketing, I'm really in two minds on the RPD section. On the one hand, yes, there's a full circle kind of moment for Leon returning here after Resident Evil 2, and there's flashbacks, especially with Kendo and Leon's grief regarding that, and I quite like that to be honest. On the flip side though, it did feel kind of like a way to reuse the layout of the RPD for the third time just to save some time and money. Probably not, maybe that's a bit cynical, but the section is so short that it's like, okay, it didn't need to be the RPD, did it? It could have been any building. Just like, you didn't need to bring back Mr. X. The story I mostly enjoyed. I'm more on the fence about them recontextualizing the Raccoon City nuke, but just in general, I'm always a bit iffy when they essentially retcon past games. I do think they've done it to further build up the connections, endgame level threat that Chris is assembling his Avengers to fight. That's just the vibes I've sort of got from this game's ending, as well as tidbits from 7 and 8 as well. I could be well off there. I'm far from a lore expert. Grace is great though, I think she plays her role in the game really well. Maybe that is helped by me enjoying her gameplay sections more, but having her as sort of like the Ethan role of way out of their depth and not ready for this at all, contrasts nicely with veteran zombie man Leon Kennedy. I do think that's kind of a problem the series has got now. The established characters are way too used to this and are prepared for it, so you need to introduce these new characters to keep that level of helplessness we had in like the earlier games. I don't know if Grace is going to come back for a later game, but I would certainly be up for it. When it comes to the trophies, this is definitely one of the easier ones I've done. Same sort of thing, you're going to need multiple playthroughs, you got your speed run, challenge runs, and so on. We already went through all of it. I do like that the series has got these established types of trophies, so you have a rough idea what to expect in a new game. What makes this one easier is that for the majority of the game you have the Magnum. It's only really the early Leon sections and then Grace's lab section you don't have it. Insanity is still probably the hardest trophy despite that, due to the few parts it won't help you as much, like the soldiers or the lieutenant boss. That really was the main spot I was stuck, and not for that long. I'm exaggerating a little bit, it was probably like 10-15 minutes, but it was longer than every other part. It's crazy to think how good Resident Evil has been for the last decade or so. The weakest was probably Resident Evil 3 Remake, which, to be honest, when you compare against all games ever made, it's not even bad. It still plays well, the re-engine's really good. This game though, Requiem, I paused after the first half to go to sleep because it was late, and I was ready to put this near the top of my favourites. Might have had a bit of new game bias in there, but that's how I was feeling at the time. Now though, I'm less sure of that. My previous top 3 was Resident Evil 1 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and Resident Evil 7. Keep in mind I haven't played every game, most notably I haven't played Resident Evil 4. I'm pretty sure now that Requiem would probably not go any lower than 4th place, and it might even beat 7 depending on how I'm feeling on that particular day. Ultimately though, it is a good game. It's a case where I really don't want to worry too much about the ranking and just say, yeah, they're all good, and I'm very excited to see whatever happens next with the Resident Evil franchise. It could be anything from like 4 different games, all remakes, so we'll have to see. And that's the video. Have you played and platinumed the game yet? How'd you find it? Where would you rank it among all the other Resident Evil games? Let me know all that and more in the comments, and while you're down there, why not subscribe? It's free, helps me out, and gives you easier access to my videos, both old and new. I did one on the rarest trophies in every single Resident Evil game that has them. You might like that, and there'll also be a Resident Evil 0 video coming in the next few months or so. This game is a lot better than that one. Don't think that's a controversial take. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. For now though, I'm off. Hunt them troves, and I'll see you next time.